You should all have one of these little cards, a visiting card, and you'll all need a logbook because you're going to do an experiment or two. And you all need a neighbor. So if you're not sitting next to someone, could you please sit next to someone? Anything else we should have learned? You all will need your ideas. Yeah, I know.
Do you have the cards? Do you have the
my last one. Any more? Someone's keeping the hundred.
No, there's two more.
No, what's going to be on the other side?
Some spares still.
Yeah, we got them.
Okay, well, while they're getting them, maybe your neighbor has one that you can share, right? On the front of the card, what does it say, sir, on your card?
We have some.
The statement on the other side of the card is false. If it says that on one side, can you turn the card over and write on the other side, the statement on the other side of this card is true. And if you have a card that says the statement on the other side of this card is true, can you turn it over and write on the card, the statement on the other side of this card is false. And if you don't have a pen, we can lend you a pen. But I have no more left, so
I did.
maybe your neighbor, such number. I thought I made 55, and I think there must be 57 people. Okay. When you've done that, discuss what you think about these, what it means about these two statements. Discuss with your neighbor. Is there a problem? Great. And if there is a problem, discuss it.
Some of you might want to include him in your discussion.
Don't discuss with yourself. You have to discuss with a superior mind next to you. So would anyone like to would anyone like to discuss what your discussion was about to the whole class? To the whole audience? It's not a class. Any volunteers?
What thoughts did you have? What ideas did you?
There's a problem here.
What's the problem?
The problem is that it can't be correct.
It can't be correct.
It can't be correct.
I mean, if the problem is so what do we call that if it can't be correct? There's actually a word paradox. Would you say it's a paradox?
A fallacy. Well, one said a fallacy and one said a paradox. And is a fallacy a paradox, or is a paradox a fallacy?
Yes. You have to speak up. I'm hard of hearing.
We have two sorts of papers. Both of them have different statements, and both of them are telling something opposite to the other thing. So they are both applied to an empty thing. So I think it cannot be like this. If I have something true and false, and both of them are talking about something empty.
Right. So would you agree there's a fallacy or a paradox?
No, I don't agree.
What would you call it?
Paradox or contradiction.
You'd call it a contradiction.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm just curious, you said you don't think a fallacy and a paradox are the same thing.
Well, I think it's an abuse of English.
Just say that they're the same.
No, just this.
Oh, okay.
Now,
What if we had done it in French?
It'd be abuse of French.
It'd be abuse of French.
the next paradox in French is a very interesting one. But you notice that there's a name at the bottom of the card there and a date, G.G. Berry 1905. That's not me. I'm not that old. But it turns out it was my great uncle, and this was his visiting card. In those days they had visiting cards, and he gave this card to the famous philosopher Bertrand Russell. Bertrand Russell was a mathematician as well as a philosopher, and he was trying to put together a complete set of axioms in axiomatic set theory for mathematics. So, mathematics would then be completely defined. But in fact, as Barry was showing with his card, you cannot, if you try to develop a complete set of axioms for mathematics, you actually run into paradoxes, and therefore he is suggesting you cannot create a complete system for mathematics.
So he was chatting with
Set of
Gazelle?
axioms. You think of Euclid, had 5 geometric axioms. And Bertrand Russell tried to, he actually worked with Bertrand Russell for a number of years, and Russell tried to incorporate the idea of paradox into his big tome that he was doing. I think the next slide shows it here. No, well, it was,
Is it the one after?
well, I guess it's the next slide. Here's actually Godfrey George Berry, and Russell tried to hide this kind of in the covers of his book. It was called the Mathematica Principia Mathematica, I forget. And it actually took several years before it was proved that Russell's ideas were, Russell and Whitehead was the book, and a gentleman by the name of Gödel in 1931 basically proved that Russell was wrong. But Berry's paradox was one of the leading beginnings to breaking open the incompleteness of mathematics. We're mostly physicists here, right? So we no longer believe in the complete theory of physics. But when you think about Russell's time, there was a sense of, we were trying to develop a complete theory of physics, complete set of axioms, and it wasn't until, relativity and quantum mechanics came on that we were able to then open it up. And so, mathematics kind of was trying to do the same thing, completely define the axioms of mathematics. So this is the incompleteness of mathematics was very important. If we could go back to the previous slide, I think this is the one I thought was very interesting in French, since that came up, is the least integer not nameable in fewer than 19 syllables. But that statement has only got 18 syllables. So there's another paradox. That's another of Berry's paradox. So the idea here is, and I really love this letter he wrote to Bertrand Russell again in 1905. If you're still interested in the possibilities of nothing, you may like to see the enclosed, which is the result of further meditation on the same fertile topic. Unfortunately, we don't have the enclosure anymore, but this is predicting the vacuum energy. Of course, that's where we're all going into the vacuum in 100 million years or so. So, but that's as it may be. I think so. So we start that with idea of paradox, and I'm going to turn this over to Mary, who thinks that failure is a more complete form of paradox, or a paradox is a general form of failure, is what we want to say.
I should say that where I come from is I'm currently on the faculty at Erickson Institute for Early Childhood in Chicago. I am not and never have been a physicist. I've never been a mathematician, although I have been involved in several significant early math programs, including one I'm working on right now at Erickson. When you say it's an abuse of the English language or the French language or anything to make a statement like this, I'm very interested in that because I originally was a student of medieval literature, and that's what my PhD is in. And I met Gordon at the University of Wisconsin, and
Here.
next, yeah.